When I started this journey, the goal was to talk about Dino Crisis 2 and how much I enjoyed that game. But the more I researched and played the game, I came to one major conclusion. Dino Crisis 2 has a fucked up plot, and that's putting it lightly. The point I'm trying to make is that for a game that is loved among the dinosaur extermination community, you have to do a lot of homework to make sense of what actually happened. Now, disclaimer. Dino Crisis 2 is a good fucking game. If anyone tells you otherwise, is a liar and a potential unperson and will be treated as such.
Hey, yo.
The developers of Dino Crisis 2 did an amazing job of putting a lot of game in their game. But this was at the cost of mandatory storytelling. Dino Crisis 1 forces you to indulge in the story. Dino Crisis 2 does not give a fuck if you pay attention. The game knows why you are here. You want to shoot dinosaurs, and you want to have a good time doing it. Dino Crisis 2 accomplishes both of these goals exceedingly. But the story? Well, that's the entire point of this video, innit? We are going to talk about the story, try to understand it, and then of course question certain choices made. This entire video is a spoiler, so if you have not played the game at least once, I highly suggest you do that. But if you're looking for some background noise and just don't care about spoilers, that's fine too. Let's start off with the information we are told at the very beginning of the game, and walk through it as it's presented until the very end. At that point, I will need to change things up, otherwise it's just going to be another retelling of the entire story with no changes. You want to make sense of this, right? Good, let's get started. It's been a year since the event of the last game. Dr. Kirk, also from the last game, had his research taken by a government agency. As you can imagine, using the tried and tested method of "we want results now, regardless of consequences" trope, things did not go so well. The research base and multiple other compounds were wiped off the map entirely. Using the imperfect time warp machine from Crash Bandicoot 3, a boat plops into another time. We have one of our protagonists, Dylan, reciting his last diary entry to the audience. Sadly, he doesn't talk about why he chose that type of hairstyle. We get introduced to David, the walking tank, and our other controllable character, Regina. It then cuts to their base where they're setting up. Now that tiny ship either held a lot of people or they've made a few trips to this area. Once again, we're going to have a couple of questions to ask, but probably not that many answers given by the game. This is going to become a reoccurring theme. It doesn't take long for the dinosaurs to welcome their guests. For a cutscene from the year 2000, this is great. It honestly portrays two things. These people are terrible at aiming, and I hope you like running away from this big bastard. David blows out its right eye with an RPG. The T-Rex goes understandably mental, like your mum that one time you got into a barking contest with a dog and won. Anyway, Regina and Dylan jump off the side of a cliff and end up at a gated area near their original entry point. After some classic Capcom dialogue,
"Oh, come on. Didn't they teach you how to open a door at SOAR training? Here, I'll show you. Watch this."
Yeah. That weapon definitely suits a Trat member. But I prefer to go in this way.
Regina tells Dylan to fuck off, and he obliges. We learn a lot from these two characters here. Dylan isn't the smartest person in the world, considering he saw his team get wiped out by a bunch of dinosaurs and still thinks there may be survivors, whereas Regina could give less of a fuck about the situation. Instead of sticking around with Dylan, she decides to go do her own thing, which we find out later is just basically chilling on their ship, which I can't say I blame her for. If you've already been through this shit once before, why would you actively put yourself in danger unless you have to? Lacking the hero syndrome, she just pieces and lets her start controlling Dylan. Dylan makes his way through the jungle, fighting off raptors. He ends up making his way to the water tower and discovers what appears to be a rejected Power Ranger enemy. Thinking that they're a survivor, he tries to help, leaving Dylan confused as well as the player. There's a locked door in this location that can't be accessed yet. Dylan decides to continue onwards as he traverses towards the T-Rex. Barely escaping from it, he ends up at another part of the compound. Here he comes across a key plate and a save point. Leaving the area and fighting off more raptors, he tries his luck again with the T-Rex, but fails. So he decides to run into another area. It turns out this section actually holds a card that he needs to progress, the research facility key card. As soon as he unlocks it, he ends up being locked into the room, because he used the wrong key plate for the safe, which, why would you even allow someone to use the wrong key plate, unless you're planning on locking them in there anyway, so I guess it worked. Whatever, let's move on. This then forces Dylan to do the one thing every man never wants to admit, that they need help. Regina responds accordingly.
Did you swing your precious machete around? Well, I guess I can help you out. Over.
And decides to get her shit together and starts off with a handgun and a stun sword. Now, I know it's called a stun gun, but does that look like a gun to you? What type of gun looks like a sword? Making her way through an alternative entry point to the complex, she comes across the game's first boss, the Allosaurus. Now, these guys are pretty difficult. They're like a smaller version of the T-Rex. After some skillful shooting and the save state reloads, she introduces freedom to the dinosaur. Making her way into the next area, she ends up at the research facility that requires Dylan's machete to enter. She enters the room beside the complex and purchases a flamethrower, as one usually does in this type of situation. She then goes back out again and comes across another set of helmet people. 3 of them attack her, doing a terrible job at that. Come on man, there's 3 of you, there's only 1 of her. She laughably just waves off the attacks and ends up capturing one of them as she's trying to escape. Regina then questionably handcuffs her to a pipe and then keeps her as a trophy. Regina clearly suffered some emotional trauma throughout the last game and is basically walking chaotic neutral. Still, she can kill the fuck out of a dinosaur, can't she? The girl doesn't seem to respond to Regina's advances. Regina decides to leave the girl trapped in a room, surrounded by dinosaurs, with no access to self-defense. I'm sure Regina doesn't hold grudges at all. Making her way back through the area where she fought the Allosaurus introduces us to another enemy type, the Pteranodon. These flying bitches are not fun to kill at all. Regina also realizes this and decides to run. Regina takes a left in the fork in the road that she came across earlier, a passage that warned her of poisonous plants. She uses a flamethrower to clear out the area and end up at Dylan's first save point. From here, Regina unlocks the submachine guns. After taking out some well-deserved rampages on the dinosaurs along her path, she finally comes across Dylan. After picking up the key Dylan slid under the door, she heads to the same area where Dylan found the key and uses her stun sword to unlock the door at the end of the hallway. She swaps out the key plate for the correct colour and goes up to pick up Dylan. After a bit of discussion, they head back to the ship with their hostage in tow, which is a cutscene I would have honestly loved to see. I can only imagine that Dylan would have questioned why she left a potential survivor tied up in a room, with the door being the only thing keeping her from being murdered by dinosaurs. After arriving at the ship, they discover the Helmet Boys have wrecked their main source of power. Dylan figures there should be a battery available somewhere in the compound. He also has a fairly weird interaction with the captured girl, as she's refusing to talk but keeps trying to touch his face. Anyway, Dylan fights off an Allosaurus next to the ship and enters a third entry point. Entering the next section leads Dylan to 2 more Allosauruses to take down. After doing this, he uses his woman's intuition and ends up picking up the actual keycard he needs for the second area, the third NG facility keycard. Continuing through the area and accessing the area where Regina murdered the plants, it leads Dylan to a blocked off location that Regina came across earlier. And of course making it to the location where Regina was attacked. Using his trap powers, he cuts off the ivy from the door and enters the building. He's almost immediately attacked by multiple oviraptors. Fighting them off, he makes his way around the hallway. He unlocks the door and heads to the next area. When attempting to traverse through the door to the right of the hallway, he's attacked by a Compsognathus, which I will be referring to as a Compy, because it's not as hard to say. The Compy ends up stealing the card that he needs to get through the door with. After figuring out how to trap the thieving little bastard, Dylan gets the card back. He then successfully enters the room on his second attempt. You'll come across a lab that's decked out with large water-like containers. Some of these are broken, with others looking like they're storing people. Based on a file Dylan finds, it turns out some of the attackers had actually been killed, and they were keeping them there for autopsy. Dylan finds the battery he needs and makes his way back to the ship. He also finds the girl missing, as Regina was probably taking a nap instead of being alert. Good job, Regina. The ship then shows that there are two locations they can go to, Edward City and the Third Energy Research Facility. Based on the card that Dylan picked up earlier, you can guess which one we're heading to. As they're about to set off, the ship is attacked by a horde of Plesiosaurus, also known as the Longneck Boys, and some of your old pals, the Pteranodon. Dylan then defends the ship against the attacking monsters. Upon arriving to the facility, we retake control of Regina. Regina then purchases a bunch of weapons of mass destruction. She then decides to test these weapons on the poor animals along the way. Except for the flying bitches, because this time, we have the power of homing missiles on our side. After getting bored of murdering everything that moves, she ends up making her way into another facility. While attempting to go down an elevator, she realizes that she needs an ID card and a code to get through. After backtracking and some more murder, Regina is able to successfully take the elevator to the lower part of the facility. She then comes across a diving suit, letting her know that she's about to go through the worst part of the game. Resigning herself to her fate, she decides to wear the suit and submerges the area in water. As she's floating along, she comes across her main target for this area, the Mosasaurus. As she makes her way through the door and reaches a save point, she comes across an area that's being blocked off because it's lacking a plug. Frustrated that she has to spend more time submerged, she starts to make her way through the facility. As she does this, she comes across many Mosasaurus, until finally coming across a bridge that holds a cracked pillar on top of it. Firing off a grenade to the cracked pillar, by doing this, she's able to access an area that holds the plug that she needs. Grabbing it and placing it into the allotted location, she backtracks through the large hallway, murdering more water dinosaurs, and proceeds through the area that she just unlocked. While she does this, she comes across the Edward City Gateway card. Entering another multi-level hallway, she comes across the boss version of the Longneck Boys from earlier. After unmercifully killing it, she unlocks the door that were originally sealed by the attack. Regina then climbs up and then makes her way to another elevator to escape the watery hellhole that she just experienced. As she reaches the surface level, Dylan has conveniently brought the ship to the same location. Turns out, she's now been led to Edward City. Regina hands over the keycard to him, as he's now our controllable character. Dylan enters the gate, showing that the entire area is in shambles. There are bodies littered along the entrance leading to the caves. Between the gate and the caves, he comes across a jungle area. Spotting a marking on one of the trees, Dylan figures it's David, so he decides to follow the symbols leading him into the cave. Using the chain mine, he gains access to the cave. The cave appears to be some kind of lava mine, with new enemies to go with it, the Inner Stravancia, also known as the Ground Boys, because that's also hard to say. After bringing down some righteous justice on these poor animals, he manages to escape the mine, but leads himself to another hellhole. Regina and Dylan both end up stumbling across an Allosaurus nest, and these guys are very, very angry. Dylan climbs up to one of the gun placements and begins firing away at them. He ends up throwing Regina a signal gun to help her. Regina then makes her way through the area, realizing her ammo won't do much, so she signals to Dylan to do her dirty work for her. Once Regina reaches the end, she swaps out with Dylan, and does the same for him. But once again, it leads them to yet another bad scenario. The surrounding area that they end up at is covered in bodies, both dinosaurs and humans. One specific corpse is of a baby Triceratops. It's sad as fuck. That's like the saddest thing you could show in a game like this. Look, that's fucked up. The parent appears and is understandably upset. Regina and Dylan then climb into a jeep and then fight off the two attacking Triceratops. After sending the parents to the child, they drive off a cliff. The jeep explodes, attracting the attention of a horde of velociraptors. But at the very last moment, David comes to save the day and then attack Chopper. As all this is going on, we see the remnants of the survivors, or what's left of them. David decides to celebrate by crashing the chopper. By the time Regina and Dylan finally make it to the compound, it's too late. Everyone's dead. Their main objective of saving the time-displaced people has failed. Regina then states they still have a chance of doing something, retrieving the third NG data, and making all this effort worth something. Making this their top priority, Dylan makes his way through the town, attempting to find the disc. As he makes his way out of the living quarters area, he's attacked by the one-eyed T-Rex. Luckily, finding a tank nearby, he climbs in and defends himself against the dinosaur. Dylan fires away using the main cannon or trying to blind the T-Rex with flash grenades. Eventually, he just manages to escape to safety by blocking the entrance to the highway. Getting out of the tank, he starts to explore the area. He manages to find a gas mask. After that, he's attacked by yet another helmet person, and is subsequently saved by the girl from earlier. Well, she tries and the helmet guy ends up jumping to his death. Now, the attacker that falls to his death appears to have red eyes of some kind, resembling a robot, an android, or a synth. During the mishmash, the mystery girl dropped a necklace that appears to belong to Dylan's sister. We find out from here Dylan's backstory. He was part of a gang before joining the army. His mother and sister were killed when the rival gang broke into Dylan's home when he wasn't there. He then joined the army in hopes of making up for his past. Even in such a touching moment, Regina could give a fuck less and tells them that they both need to get the fuck out of there. Dylan mentions the gas mask that he just found, and how it can help them get through the remaining deadly poison zone in the jungle. He actually sounds sad when he's talking to her, considering he just shared a piece of his tragic history and was told, "That's nice," by Regina. Back at the ship, we retake control of Regina. Heading towards the jungle yet again, Regina makes her way to the poisonous gas area from before, this time opting to head down the ladder. She equips the gas mask and traverses through the poisonous area. In doing so, she's able to travel to the missile silo. After fighting off some more velociraptors, she makes her way down the stairs to the facility, and ends up successfully picking up the third NG data disk. Once she tries to make her way back out again, she's finally reunited with her friend, the T-Rex, but as we all know, there's always a bigger fish. And that's when the Gigantosaurus makes its appearance, and it's very true to its name. It decimates the T-Rex and forces Regina back into the facility. Due to the Dino Fisticuffs match on the surface, the missile in the facility is now attempting to launch. The computers malfunction and trigger the launch sequence. Regina offers to stop the launch via the control panel and tells Dylan to do one. He makes no attempt at helping her and gladly leaves. He's gonna let her deal with the dinosaur and the warhead all on her own. He's supposed to be a lieutenant, by the way. In all fairness, Regina has been pretty mean to him the entire game, so she probably should have thought about that before this situation. Anyway, she heads down the elevator and is met with a 20-minute time limit. She has to try and get to the control panel before then. Simple enough, right? Nope. Big Dino pops up and starts absolutely fucking things up. Big time. The walkway that Regina needs to use ends up being lowered, meaning now she has to fight this thing. Using her noodle, she uses her stun sword on the gas containers along the walkway. She barely manages to survive, almost being taken out multiple times before finally she's able to take it out before it does her. This then raises the walkway. Coming across a Stun the Fuse minigame, she decides to play before making her way across the secondary walkway. She uses the elevator to get to the top and finally turn off the warhead. Good job, Regina. So as she makes her way back down, turns out Big Dino is far from dead. The Gigantosaurus thrashes around, causing the missile to topple and explode. Okay, so I've been pretty lenient with the storyline so far, but this is the specific point I feel like things start to get messy. So they don't flat out say it's a nuclear warhead, but they do mention the term warhead repeatedly, and it's also heavily implied that they don't get the fuck out of this situation, things are going to end very badly for them.
We have to get as far away from this place as possible. Let's head down the river.
Now the missile, let's just watch it fall. Okay, did you see that? Did you see it fall on top of the area she just jumped into? It's being shielded by a tiny plate of glass and a shit ton of concrete. Now I'm all for believing in a sense of disbelief and enjoying things for what they are. But if you're gonna drop a not nuclear warhead, onto an escaping protagonist and not have them suffer any type of damage other than just walking it off, it's a little hard to not start asking questions. Even back when I was a kid, it didn't make sense. It makes even less sense now, but we've got a lot more of that coming along the way. Let's continue. Regina uses plot armor to survive, and is told by the computer lady that the missile exploded, but the warhead is now armed. I'm not even gonna ask, let's just get the fuck out of here. She fights her way through the facility, leading her to Dylan and David, who is super happy with this situation.
Oh, give me a break, man! We're dead!
They get onto the ship and make their way up the river. They end up being blocked by a gate along the way. David and Dylan get out and try to solve the issue, man style. As David is raising the gate, he ends up being attacked by a bunch of velociraptors. Dylan then uses the gun placement to keep him safe. Their momentary victory is sadly short-lived, as they're attacked by an Allosaurus. A dazed Dylan is saved by David, who ends up being chomped to death by the evil dinosaur bastard. Regina just watches as Dylan floats off to an unknown area of the jungle. Coming to at the edge of a lake, he wakes up to find the mystery girl just staring right at him. Probably watching him the entire time, the creepy fuck. Anyway, she seems to know the area as she calls it home. Dylan escorts the girl through the jungle, defending her against attackers as she unlocks the path to the area where they apparently need to go. Once they arrive, the girl leads them to a futuristic looking structure before she runs off without Dylan. As Dylan tries to follow, a gate triggers a defense mechanism that requires him to turn off all the backup locks. Doing this 4 times unlocks the gate, all while fighting off the strongest raptors in the game. Dylan enters the facility and the last section of the game. So everything I've said up until this point is common knowledge if you play the game or just read up on it. The upcoming part, the way it's told, is kind of messy, so I'm going to explain it through my own interpretation as I feel it's a bit more cohesive. I am then going to introduce some shotgun mouthwash to the plot and decimate it. Dylan enters the facility. It's more futuristic than anything he's come across in the entire game so far. This is where we learn about the secondary plot of the game. Dylan comes across 2 very important files. One is called the Superintendent's Will, and the other one is called the Noah's Ark Plan. He then makes his way into another room, which holds a hologram projector in the middle of it. The girl operates the computer, which triggers the hologram, and it begins to basically mindfuck Dylan to no return. At this point, we're going to stop talking about the actual game. Let's talk about the actual timeline up until this point, because this point gets very confusing if this is not laid out correctly. So in 2009, the first game occurs, which is considered to be the first accident or overdrive. So this is where Regina and a team go to get Kirk and they come across dinosaurs. All that shit happens. We don't know which ending ends up being the true one, but we can assume it's the good ending, where all of them survive and they also take Dr. Kirk. Now in January 2010, about 2 months before this current game starts, the second accident occurs. This causes a military base, a research facility, Edward City, and the missile silo to all be transported to another time. Those specific things, keep that in mind. March 2010, DC2 takes place. Now instead of arriving at the exact moments the victims from the 2010 accident had, Regina and Dylan end up appearing 15 years later. This is because in their time, 2010, they don't have the full knowledge they need to build a perfect time gate that will take them to that exact point. So it ends up taking them 15 years after. Because of this, they end up appearing there much later than they intended. So from here, the game takes place up until the point where we are currently at right now. The hologram tells us he's actually from the year 2055, and the facility that we're currently in does not have anything to do with the accident from 2010. It was already here prior to the accident. Where is here? Well, here is 3 million years into the distant future.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
So it turns out, no one went into the past. The Noah's Ark file that we picked up earlier states, prior to 2055, the WAPP Council, no explanation on the what part, so use your imagination on that one, conducted an experiment to review the immediate after effects to the Cretaceous period where the accident from 2009 had displaced the dinosaurs from Dino Crisis 1. So they did an experiment to review what would happen to that time period immediately after the original accident took place. Turns out the outcome was not good. There were multiple temporal displacements, special word of saying time fucked up stuff, that continued to take place during that period, creating a crisis of dinos, if you will. Since they couldn't plop the dinos back in their original time due to this dino time crisis, the council decided to transport all those dinosaurs into the future. By doing this, they can give the dinosaurs a place to survive in hibernation, and then transport them back to their original time after the time crisis was over. Sorry, the dino crisis. The crisis was over, okay? You get it. You still with me? Good, because it's about to get worse. They start to send the dinosaurs into the future on August 10th, 2055, which is my birthday. And I didn't realize that until I started playing the game again for the 11th time and actually sat through the cutscenes. Anyway, they successfully transport all the time-displaced dinosaurs from Dino Crisis 1 into the future. However, as you can imagine, there was yet another accident. This is a third accident, but this is not one that is to do with third energy, so to speak. This one was caused by a computer that kept the dinosaurs hibernating. It ends up malfunctioning, and with that, the time gate ends up disappearing. Now, this is not followed up in this game, or any other game for that matter. There's no explanation of what it means by the time gate disappeared. I'm just gonna assume it literally just disappeared. Anyway, when the dinosaurs are now let loose, the facility takes massive casualties. It's implied over time that all the remaining adults are killed, except for the hologram. We learn that the mystery girl's name is Paula, and she's actually the daughter of the hologram. We learn that Paula and her other helmet friends are actually the children of the researchers that passed away. Due to the Noah's Ark plan taking place over what I can only assume to be at least a decade, they decided to bring their families along with them. This explains what the superintendent's will was talking about. The kids can't speak, but they attack anyone who isn't a dinosaur due to the reprogramming they've had to endure in the pods. The pods were originally designed for dinosaurs, but the remaining surviving children were placed into the pods, as they would remain safe for an undisclosed amount of time. The purpose of this was so that the people from the past could take them back to the year 2010. The hologram begs Dylan to take Paula and the rest of the children back, so that his wife, and the researcher's sacrifice won't be in vain. In the hologram's last act of command, he rediverted all the remaining resources to this facility, as rebuilding the stable time gate would not be possible due to the lack of resources. So he opted to save the children instead. These children were not supposed to be awake until Dylan and Regina arrived, but some of them woke up an unspecified amount of time before their arrival. There's a note near the beginning of the game that states there have been attacks from oddly dressed people. The bodies that we come across in the research facility that were encased in preservation fluid to run experiments and find out where they're coming from. Now this part isn't really explained that much either, but it turns out the kids were actually attacking the time-displaced people because they thought they were enemies of the dinosaurs, as this is what they were reprogrammed to learn. The hologram makes it very apparent that he knows of why Dylan's here. That's because the hologram is actually Dylan from the future. So future Dylan uses his knowledge that he gains from the current mission that he's on to join the WAP Council, so he can assist past Dylan, the one that we control, at this exact moment, which continues the time loop. Now I do want to state, if future Dylan knows what's about to go down and he doesn't tell you, he is a massive dickhead. Otherwise I assume future Dylan's DC2 mission went down differently than present day's Dylan. At least that's what I tell myself before I cry myself to sleep at night. Anyway, after that huge bombshell and finding out that he has a daughter from the future, the two of them make their way to the oversized transport chamber. As soon as they enter, a self-destruct sequence is activated. Immediately after, the two are attacked by one of the helmet kids. Dylan fights off the attacker before we have the final appearance of the Gigantosaurus. Dylan decides to leg it as the dinosaur attacks. The attacker falls to his death from here. Dylan rushes across the bridge, almost being crushed by the dinosaur, and he's welcomed by the doors locking on the side. He now has to use a conveniently placed satellite laser that will hopefully end the big bastard. Dylan has to travel to each end of the oversized chamber, first to arm the weapon, and then select the target, before finally making his way back to the center to fire his laser. The Gigantosaurus is absolutely decimated to the point where the laser leaves a huge crater in the ground, less than 100 feet away from Dylan. Through the power of plot armor, he manages to survive and escapes into the time gate room. Here we get the actual what the fuck ending, as if this wasn't already confusing enough. Dylan enters the room and finds Paula waiting for him. He starts to power up the time gate as Regina conveniently returns as they're about to leave. The facility then begins to shake uncontrollably. I assume this is due to the self-destruct sequence or because the time gate being incomplete. The resulting quake ends up with Paula's legs being squished by what I assume is a supercomputer. Dylan and Regina attempt to pull the thing off, but are unable to do so. As this is happening, the portal opens up and they don't have much time to get through. Dylan takes a look at his daughter and knows what he has to do. He tells Regina to go back through the portal and use the third energy data to create a perfect time gate. By doing this, she can come back and save the two of them. Regina reluctantly agrees to his request. After one final goodbye, she leaves. Dylan and Paula then presumably perish within the explosion that follows. From here, the credits roll. Now, if that isn't a big what the fuck ending, I don't know what is. So let's talk about a few burning questions that I have. Number 1. Are the kids part android? We find that at least 2 of the helmet kids, specifically the ones that are with Paula at the start of the game, have red eyes. I believe these are the ones that have been following you throughout the entire game. Their eyes fade out to what looks like to be an android or a dying robot. Nowhere in the game do they mention any of this. In the final cutscene that takes place, the idiot that triggered the self-destruct sequence is possibly an android or a synth. Apparently, in Dino Crisis 3, there's a note that actually backs this up, but I'm not playing that game unless I absolutely have to. Number 2. Why did the helmet kid set off an explosion in the facility that holds the remainder of the children that haven't woken up? This is a huge flaw because it makes absolutely no sense. I can assume it's to protect the dinosaurs, but would you not want to protect others like yourself? Why would you trigger the self-destruct sequence just for the sake of taking out maybe 3 people when one of them was your own? Number 3. How did the time gate disappear? The malfunctioning of a computer makes sense, and this is also backed up in Dino Stalker, another game I'm not playing unless I absolutely have to. But it's never explained how the time gate just disappears. Does it become sentient and just go to a point in the timeline where time gates are free? Who the fuck knows? Number 4. Future Dylan clearly knew some shit was going to go down after he spoke to his past self, which is why the laser is there to kill the dinosaur. He joined the mission specifically because of the knowledge that he gains from Dino Crisis 2, which means at some point either Regina saves him or the disappointment that is Dino Stalker 2 happens and he's sent back to his original time, so he can continue the time loop in 2055. Why doesn't Dylan tell himself about the massive dinosaur or that he's about to get trapped and killed? It creates a time paradox, as we see Dylan die, or at least it's implied. I don't know, and at this point I'm going to end up in a time loop of my own. Final question. This is the biggest point, and it's not really a question but an overall observation. I know I'm probably not the first person to come up with this theory, but let's talk about how time travel is supposed to work in the Dino Crisis universe. We'll use the Back to the Future concept as our foundation. So the experiment that they ran disclosed that all life would cease to exist because of the accident in 2009. This caused a temporal crisis during the Cretaceous period because that's where the animals came from. The council felt that they would remedy this by sending the dinosaurs into the future from 2055. Now that is a 46-year time gap between 2009 and 2055. That's a long time. Now during that point, shouldn't the human race and all life on the planet just disappear, or look like they were going to? And because that it actually didn't, doesn't this mean that it doesn't affect their existing and current timeline, but in actual fact affects another timeline that does not impact their own? Which would mean they're trying to save a timeline that isn't associated with their own just for the sake of it. Now, based on the events up to this point, they haven't been really, let's say, smart with their choices. Do you think the same people that basically forced another accident would care about a timeline that doesn't exist within their own? Now these are just my theories and questions. I've had some of these for years, and some of them since I started this project. I feel like a lot of other people who love the game like I do have similar questions. The fact that they ham-fisted such a convoluted plot at the very last 30 minutes of the game is frankly insane. But that's how it was actually made. The plot was primarily placed at the very beginning and the very end of the game. This would avoid the player having to go through mandatory story and go through a slow-paced game similar to Dino Crisis 1. Considering the game was made in a year, I think they did a damn good job with what they had. Even with all of my concerns, I've enjoyed this game. I love this game. Even as a 33-year-old, it doesn't make a difference. It's still like I'm 12 all over again whenever I play through this. The gameplay was the main reason I enjoyed it. As a kid, all I wanted to do was shoot dinosaurs. I didn't give a fuck about third NG data. I've mentioned it multiple times throughout this video but failed to explain it. That'll come in the Dino Crisis 1 video. From the simplistic gameplay that keeps you wanting to come back for more, to the weird music that ranges from bombastic to weird sounding at multiple points in the game, it all comes together to be a very memorable experience. Based on the time that they had, they went with the idea of concentrating on the gameplay over the story. For a game made in the year 2000, it gave me everything I wanted. The questions I had about the story kept making me come back, but maybe that was the entire point. Maybe we were meant to be confused so we would keep coming back at it over and over again. With all that being said, I want to take this time to say thank you to each and every one of you. You've been listening to me ramble on like a maniac about a plot from a game from the year 2000. What was your experience with Dino Crisis 2? Do you plan on playing it now that I've ruined it for you? Even if you don't, and you have something to say, feel free to leave a comment below. My name's Sir Lionheart, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe out there, guys.